Well, I think that smile says it all. That is a quick car. I really enjoyed that. So that is the first time driving this Fiesta out on any kind of outside. It's quick. I love the throttle response. It's so fast. But as you can see, it does have its problems. As you saw in the film, it cuts out. I did have it running yesterday, took it outside. What I found was that the idle, as soon as you give it kind of a wide open throttle, the throttle was staying wide open for a few seconds and then it was coming back down again. So even though I'd let go of the accelerator, it was still kind of massively going on wide open throttle. The other thing I had was that, as you can see on the video, it's kind of puffing with black smoke as well. So there's unburnt fuel. And I had the problem yesterday was that it died. I took it out yesterday for pretty much a similar sort of thing yesterday, and it died. And I couldn't get it started again. It wouldn't help. I had to push it back into the workshop, get it up on the ramp. This morning, when I tried to start the car again, it starts up perfectly. The other problem I've had was that it suddenly stopped working. I couldn't get it to drive at all. Couldn't even get it to start. And what I found out was that I'd got a spark on one cylinder only. Now, and it was number one was firing, but not 2, 3 or 4. We put a timing light on number 1 and the timing light flashed, but on 2, 3 and 4 neither of them flashed, so it wasn't making a spark. I moved the plug leads around, didn't make any difference. It still only sparked on number 1 plug. We moved the plugs around and all of a sudden it starts to spark on number 4 where I put the new plug in. Where I put number 1's plug in number 4's hole, I got a spark. So I decided it was definitely something wrong with the plugs. Pulled the plugs out and this is what I found. Right, so this plug, nothing wrong with that. I assume this is one of the ones that was firing. 2 of the other ones, as you can see, have got massive cracks down the porcelain. Now I figure these 2 are probably dead. They look alright, but they've got massive cracks down the porcelain. It's that big that I can actually feel it with my finger on there. The third plug doesn't look to be that bad, to be honest. It doesn't look cracked or anything like that, but I think that 3 of these plugs are dead and 1 is working. Now I don't know if it's that one that's working or that one that's working, but those 2 are definitely dead and 1 of these 2 is working, 1 of them's dead. So 4 new plugs, the car started up again. So as you can see on the video, she's still running pretty rich. It's getting black smoke coming out of the exhaust. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. Tested the fuel pressure, seems to be alright. As far as I know, everything's alright. And the only thing I can really think of now is that I need to go through, make sure that all the wires are connected as they should be. As I've said before, I have given myself more problems by cutting the loom. So now I need to check that I've made all the connections that should be made. So I'm going to now check every single wiring connection in the engine bay and to the ECU. Basically I want to make sure that everything that's connected to the engine is connected to the pins on the ECU. And I'm going to check every cable. I've made up this cable here and it's got a couple of pins on the end of it. Now this end is the male end. I'm trying to put it there. This is the male end, and basically what I can do is if I disconnect injector number 1, for example, so that's connected to one of the pins, I can then take this cable take the other end of the cable down to the ECU, and I can then take my wiring diagram for the Mondeo ECU and I can look on here and I can see that Y31 there is injector number 1, and I can see that one side of it goes to pin number 51 of the ECU and the other one goes to a common earth that also goes back to the ECU on pin 37 and 57. So I can now check that I've got continuity on pin 51, and I've also got continuity on pin 37 and 57. So I'm going to do that with all of these cables. Okay, injector number 1. Yeah. Injector number 2. Yeah. Idle control valve. Take the positive. Take the positive. Ooh, got a problem there. Right, so after about an hour or so, I finally found out that I've got one pair of cables connected wrong. So as you heard on the video, I didn't get continuity on the power side of the idle control valve. Now the idle control valve is actually marked plus and minus on here, and what I found out is I've connected them the wrong way around, so I had a minus and plus on there. So I swapped them over, and nothing happens. This is actually shorted out. When I put a test probe on it, it does actually blow the fuse to the test probe, so that's knackered. I found one at the scrapyard, and that works. So I'm able to put that on, and that has solved at least one of the problems. So with that valve now changed, she starts a little bit better, got a little bit better idle. I'm starting to get a bit desperate. I really don't know what to do about this. So I've had to ask for help, and I've asked for help from the only man that I know that can answer any of these kind of questions, and that's Shane Baker. Now he asked me to take a photo of the injectors, make sure we've got the right injectors, which I have. He's asked me to go through all the connectors, which I've already done, make sure I've got the right ECU, which I have, and he wants to take a picture of the thermostat housing. And there we found another problem. So this is the thermostat housing that I bought for the car, which is brand new. It is one for a Mondeo or an ST170, but it's the same engine. As you'll see on top there, it's got the temp sensor there, which is just held in with a little clip. Water in there, water out to the heating element there. Now when I spoke to Shane Baker, he pointed out that that's the wrong temp sensor. You shouldn't have that one. What I should have is that one. Now as you can see, they've got a slightly different plug on them. That one is a rounded plug, and that one's a square plug. So they're not the same plug, and to me that kind of doesn't make much difference, but apparently these engines are quite sensitive as to what temperature sensor they're running. I did measure the resistance in this temperature sensor, and it gave me 31 ohms, I think. I also measured the resistance in that temperature sensor, and I got 36 ohms, I think. So there's a difference of 5 ohms, which doesn't sound a lot, but if the ECU is expecting a signal of 31 ohms and gets a signal of 36 ohms, it doesn't know what it's doing. So if the ECU doesn't know whether the engine's hot or cold, it kind of doesn't know what state it's in, and it will go into a kind of a limp home mode and just throw fuel into the engine to start it. So we're thinking that that's the problem. So as you can see, I've already swapped the thermostat housing over, and it solved the problem. That one simple problem. I had absolutely no idea that that was the problem. And as you can see, the car runs really, really well now. So we got it running, and then we've gone on to the next problem. All that lot's come from my car, and it's petrol. It's leaking petrol. It's leaking petrol on right-hand turns and under braking. Let's get it back in the workshop then. So the fuel leak problem is caused by this. This is the original intake pipe for the Mk1 Fiesta fitted to the car. You obviously fill the fuel up here and it goes straight into the tank. This is the original one. I have changed my tank for one with a sender on the top, with a return pipe in it for me having an injection, and it came with this seal. Now this seal is just the one that fits on the tank. Problem is, It's massive, which means that every time I put the brakes on, fuel pours to the front of the tank and it swashes all over everywhere, and I get fuel all over the ground. So how do I solve that? Now the original one is much smaller than this and doesn't actually fit in the tank, so I have to stay with this rubber, and that pipe is the one that fits the car, so I really have to stay with that. So the option I've got is this. This is basically an exhaust muff, but as you can see here, we're halfway down that pipe. That's a perfect fit for that rubber. So I now have to fit a muff onto that pipe. So that's my new muff welded onto there. I've bent the edge over so it's easier to fit, and just welded up the end there to make it nicely sealed. So quick coat of black paint. That can all go back together again now. Well, it's certainly been a very trying week, but as you can see, she's running. So that is the end of a very long, tiring and head scratching week. She runs a lot better. She's getting better for every time. I've just started her up this morning. She's been sat since last night, and starts up first flick of the key. Still a bit hesitant on the accelerator, but I think it's just going to get better. She's running better and better as the ECU learns all of its signals. So I'm hoping solve the problem, so I can put the car back together again, and hopefully I can start going off to some car shows with this car. And I also want to get it ready for its MOT. So if you like what you've seen in this video, press the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot, and bye bye. I'll leave you with one last little drive.